My guest this half hour is Hope Zvara, who is the CEO of Mother Trucker Yoga, a company dedicated to improving truck drivers' fitness and wellness standards, and we know we can use it. Heather has been featured in Forbes magazine, Yahoo News, and also on the two-time Emmy-nominated show Startup. What did I do? I, I didn't.
How many times are you going to call me Heather this morning, Michael?
I had this brain that was with me yesterday, and for some reason it left. And Hope, I am so sorry. I apologize for that. That's not something I normally do, especially when I got your name staring me in the face right here, and I know better. But Hope.
Good morning.
It's good morning, dear, and it's so good to have you with us. I want to talk because I listen to you when you are on with Tim. I listen to you a lot, and I love the fact that what you're doing and what you're transmitting to our drivers is so important, so practical, and so easy to do. These are very, very, you break these down to where they become simplicity. And that helps a lot because, that's not their first time primary job. Getting the freight where it belongs is. And to make their lives better, you make all of our lives better. And I want to thank you for doing that.
Well, I love it, and I love my drivers, and I'm excited to chat with you this morning.
Me too. And one of the things that's going on, you are constantly working to improve their lives, to improve their health, make them feel better. And one of the things that makes it tough is this pain brain body connection. And you actually have some. I want to talk about what you've learned about stopping that cycle. Part of that is kind of selfish, but part of it's not. But yeah. Tell me what you've learned.
Well, I think first of all, for those of you listening, pain is real. Mm-hmm. Pain is real in the sense that you're feeling it. It exists. For many of us, it can overtake our lives in various capacities. And I just want to acknowledge that because there's a lot of people out there, Michael, that their pain is not validated, that people are telling them it's made up or it doesn't exist, that they need to get over it. And that not only is not the easiest thing to do, it can just push people down a path even further away from finding a solution. So I just want to validate that right off the bat.
Well, thank you.
Secondly, yes, absolutely. I myself have struggled with physical pain before, mental pain. I have family members that I have watched it just cripple them in every capacity. And those are the things that kind of spur me into rabbit hole research, I call it. All of a sudden I hear something or someone says something and I'm like, I'm going to see if that's true. Or I'm going to see if there's a solution for that beyond what people are offering. And one of the most fascinating things that I have been researching and reading about and learning about lately is this idea of what's called, now, I didn't make this up, okay? The Hope hormones. I did not make this up.
I like it.
That name on there. But they're called Hope hormones. And this whole thing behind the Hope hormones is research that the American Psychological Society, now I read the majority of this on with them. There's other people that now have put out articles on this, is that muscles are endocrine glands. And I know for those of you listening, you might be like, what the heck does that mean? Well, what it means is that this research in the last 10, I think it's like 6 years, muscles secrete chemicals and hormones and proteins, and they protect you from stress. And so for those of you listening, what this means, what they're saying is that when you hike, bike, exercise, do yoga, weight lifts, whatever it is, you're actually pumping these hope hormones into your body that can possibly work better than antidepressants. And the reason why this research is so cool is that for some people, medications don't work.
Right.
For some people, it's not as effective as they would hope it would be. And I've been saying this since the beginning, is exercise is one of the greatest drugs that we can hope for. And for people listening, I'm not talking about becoming a gym rat or, putting your foot on your head or whatever it is, we kind of create these stories in our mind, right, Michael, of what we think something is so we
Right.
don't have to do it to protect ourselves, to keep us where we are. But these hope hormones, this idea of contracting your muscles is literally like a pharmacy. And what's so cool to me is we are walking around with literally the medication to help ourselves right in our bodies, right inside of us. And when we make a contracted muscle, when we act in the act of exercise or movement, and I know for some people listening, you might be like, well, I'm a flat better, I'm really active, or when I go home, I'm, out in my backyard, and that's great. But like a medication, it needs to be taken daily.
Okay.
And so with this idea that our muscles are an endocrine gland, with this concept of these hope hormones, one of the things I want everyone listening to do right now is take inventory. And so from the moment that you wake up to the time that you go to bed, how often are you contracting your muscles? How often are you moving your body where your whole skeletal system is involved? Your whole muscular system is involved. I'm a visual person, and so when I'm exercising, I'm just like visualizing just like a flood of blood, a flood of fluid just like pumping into my body when I'm moving, when I'm walking my dog, when I'm, lifting weights, when I'm stretching, whatever it is. And for many of us in our society, and I think I've said this on the show with Tim before, or actually no, with Dave Nemo, we talked about this concept that as we age, we are just kind of pushing ourselves in America in the direction of just poor health for no other reason other than the fact then our society promotes that we move less as we age.
Right.
And so are you aging healthy, in my mind, is often based solely on are you moving enough during the day?
Yeah, and I can relate to this one in particular because I know as a result of 3 spinal surgeries, I ended up with neuropathy in idiopathy. It falls under either term, but and neuropathy in your feet, and especially can drive you to
which is very common in diabetes, by the way, for those of you listening.
Right, and that's one of the signs. But mine was from nerve damage, and but it can drive you to madness. And at times, it felt like while you were sleeping, somebody set your feet on fire, and then covered them back up again. And the weird thing was not that exists and so forth, but I have a wife who is my beautiful bride is a retired registered nurse. I have a son who is a doctor. I went to them and they're like, yeah, but there's no cure. There's no treatment. You just have to get used to it, And I'm like, no, that can't be true. And you're absolutely right. And there are some feel-good hormones that actually react to that. In addition to some really interesting natural chemical substances like frankincense and myrrh, for instance.
Absolutely.
How Christmas biblical can we get? They will actually relieve that pain, and then you can actually get out and exercise. And the more you walk, the more you do stuff, the less it bothers you.
Pain is such an interesting thing because when, let's say you stub your toe, it sends a signal to your brain, and your brain is really deciding how much pain is there. And I think, in my mind, I always think we could trick the brain into thinking that it's not that bad. And movement and exercise and muscle contraction, specifically muscle contraction, can really trick our brain into thinking that, it's not that bad. Like you said, these hope hormones, I'm going to give my body hope that things can get better. And there are obviously other factors that can play a role in this. And I think for some of you listening, pain becomes our identity. I watched someone that I love dearly for years where pain became who they were. And many of us walk around like, hi, I'm cancer. Hi, I'm back surgery.
Yep.
Hi, I'm plantar fasciitis. And we don't even realize that it becomes who we are. The conversations, everything revolves around this, which you're only reinforcing in your brain that this is you. And so, yes, there's movement, and yes, there's medications, but also you have to play a role in this and start rewiring that when you stub your toe, no, it's not World War III. When you have a sniffle, no, you're not dying. That this is just something that you can breathe through, that you can let go of. The brain, in my mind, still and forever will be one of the most powerful organs in our body. And so many people, and it makes me sad, just kind of are giving up hope on themselves and taking the passenger seat to their own body and to their own life. And I just love this research because what it's saying is hope really is in your hands. You really can improve your health and start to age healthy and start to live a higher quality life. But first step always is, Michael, you got to make the decision.
Yeah. And if you want to know how obnoxious that identity is, think back to when you were a kid and it was Thanksgiving and all your aunts stood in the corner talking about their medical maladies. And that'll remind you not to do that. Let's take a quick break right here. We'll come back on the other side and we're going to talk about the importance of thinking as we have been, imaging your brain. Hope you mentioned that you are a visual person. We all are. That's how our brain works. We'll be back and talk about that right after this. We are back with Hope Zvara, the CEO of Mother Trucker Yoga, and I'm so glad to have you with us. You mentioned this, and I want to reiterate again. You said you are very visual and you see things. The language of the human brain is visualization. The language of the human brain is pictures. I don't care if you're reading a book or if you're listening to a lecture, your brain starts translating things into pictures because that's all it understands. We have all these different languages in the world, but as long as that translates into a picture, a visualization in your brain, then you can deal with it and you can remember it. And let's talk about, we see it in sports, we see it in medicine, we see it all over the place. People are finally beginning to learn how important visualization is. How can we use this to feel better?
Absolutely. Now, fun fact, so there's about 3% of people worldwide that actually can't visualize. I can't even pronounce the name. It starts with an A, and my dyslexia kicks in. But for those of you that can't visualize, the wiring is off in your brain, the way around that is to literally talk yourself through like an audiobook. And so if you've ever listening to something, you're really just focusing on the words, and you're almost creating a little bit of a meditation just by focusing word for word, whatever it is that you're listening to. But I'm pretty confident that with only 3% of people in the world that have this challenge. I actually met somebody once, and that's why that kind of spurred me into a research funnel when I had a yoga studio many years ago that had this, and I was like, impossible. Right. Impossible. I don't believe it. But it is. It's right there, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, so, you're talking about those who have aphantasia?
Thank you. Yes, I can never say that word.
Oh, yeah.
I met somebody, though, that had that, and it was a real, it was great because I actually got to talk to someone that had it, but it really is a thing where you can't visualize. Your brain just doesn't put pictures together.
Right.
And now that was only been one person in the thousands I've worked with, but
it's very rare.
It does exist. It does exist. But when it comes to guided imagery and mental imagery, again, I always like to take inventory so people have a starting point. Many times we just think about our goal, Michael, and then it feels so far away, and then we're like, I can't do that, and we give up before we even start. That's too much to do, or that's too complicated. So I always like to take inventory. So for those of you listening, take inventory right now of yourself in how you feel and where your life is, and maybe the things that you would like to improve. And what I don't want you to do is start to see all of the bad. See all like, well, oh, my boss is a jerk, or I'm never home, or, back in 1993, this happened to me. Again, don't let that pain become an identity where the things that you're visualizing and reinforcing in your brain, in that big, huge database center, become all the things that you hate about life. Mm-hmm. So that's really the first thing, is recognize the conversation that's happening in your head, because 10 minutes of visualization once a week ain't going to do much. Mm-hmm. It's just not.
No.
Because of the other 23 hours plus a day that you're visualizing how crappy your life is. So take inventory of what it is you're doing in your mind, what the conversation in your head, the things that you're bringing back to life, the stories that you are telling yourself, and the mental map that's being created that's dictating the direction that you're going in your life. When I realized that, and what I was telling myself many years ago, it kind of scared me, Michael. I was like, and I always thought, okay, I'm a positive person, but what was going on inside, it was not so positive, was not so forward moving. And so taking that inventory is absolutely important. And then that next thing with visualization is to really recognize how it is that you visualize. Some people like music to go with it. Some people need a quiet, relaxing space. Some people, you mentioned frankincense and myrrh. Aromatherapy can really set them into a space where they can believe it. And I'm sure that you have some stories as well, that you can visualize something, but then there's this voice in your head saying, that's not true.
Yeah,
that's a lie.
Getting control of that unruly 5-year-old is a full-time job, by the way. We've got Drill Sergeant Don. He called in. He'd like to ask you a question. Can we do that?
Absolutely.
All right. Drill Sergeant Don, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
And welcome on with Hope.
Yeah, Hope. I've been, I've been a positive guy and been through a lot. And I had knee surgery, and I fell twice on my back and messed me all up. I had back surgery. I got neuropathy, got neck problems, and, trying to think positive all the time when you go see these doctors or workman comp people, and they say, well, you're 67 years old, you got arthritis and bone spurs, and it's a cop-out.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, how old do you think? They got people younger that got bone spurs and arthritis. Mm-hmm. So why can't I get fixed?
All right, good question. Drill Sergeant Don, hang on a minute. Hope?
So restate the question again.
Why can't he get fixed?
Why can't he get fixed? Like in the sense of like just being able to move forward and get better?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just met you 10 seconds ago, so there's that factor. But I think one of the things that I always think, in my experience, is what is our past? What are we taken with? How is it that we have been looking at life and the experiences that we've had up to this point? Are they a lot? Have we processed them? Have we dealt with them? Have we let them go? Michael, you talked about, back surgery and everything that probably led up to that point is a pretty heavy bag to carry. And I have kind of not the greatest past in myself. And for me, I always look at, as far as pain goes and as far as, the things that we experience in our body is, I have two choices. I can either move forward or I can stay where I am. But speaking specifically to visualization, the thoughts really are the language of the body, and the feelings play a huge role in that. And so my suggestion to you would be, if you're practicing visualization, if you're practicing meditation, if you're moving in this direction, is, are you feeling those moments of hope? When you said you're practicing some of this stuff, Are you actually in the emotion? Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot, where you got to feel what it is that you're visualizing in order for it to rewire your brain, in order for it to change, because the brain does not know the difference between something that has happened and something that has not.
Right.
You can actually trick the brain into thinking, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm living this life that I want to live. You know, yeah, I might have a bum leg, but like I'm visualizing myself happy, you know, with or without a bum leg. You can make that choice, but this is also something that doesn't happen overnight. I think for many of us in our society with social media and instant gratification and just the things that we're constantly bringing into our brain, there's this concept that if it doesn't work in one try, if it doesn't work in 5 tries, it doesn't work.
Right.
And that just isn't how life works. I'm in recovery, and they always said 1 month for every year. I was like, crap. This is going to be a long journey. And it was much longer than that, but it gave you a baseline to recognize how much you have to dedicate to constantly just chipping away and being at it. And so I think first steps first is, you know, can you give yourself 10 minutes every day to sit down, to put some music on, to visualize what you would like your life to be like. But the key is you got to feel it. You got to feel like it really exists and you're worth it. And interestingly enough, a lot of people won't even allow them to do that because they don't think they deserve it.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on. You've said the word inventory several times. You have an inventory of things that can help the drivers feel better out there on the road. And I'm going to suggest that every one of you that is interested, take a look at www.mothertruckeryoga, all one word.com. Please do it. Hope, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate it. It's Michael Burns signing off from the Tim Ridley